Welcome to Judica County. I'm your host, Damion McCullers, and I'm here with our attorney, Taylor Scruggs. We are both attorneys with McCullers, Whitaker, and Hamer, your law firm for life. Today, we want to touch on separation agreements and how they work. Again, Taylor is one of our family law attorneys at the firm. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Just want to ask you, and we get this question a lot with folks that come in. Tell me, what is a separation agreement?
So a separation agreement is essentially a contract between a husband and a wife saying this is how we're going to split our property. If kids are involved, this is how we're going to handle custody and child support. This is how we're going to handle any type of support that one or more, the other party may be getting. But it's essentially a contract of terms saying this is how we're deciding to dissolve the marriage and everything that we own associated with the marriage.
Okay. And just kind of how does that work in conjunction with a divorce? Do I have to be divorced first? Do I have to have a separation agreement first? Or do I have to have a separation agreement?
So you don't have to have a separation agreement at all. You could just file for divorce after you've been separated for a year. One reason people do separation agreements is because essentially it puts all the terms laid out. So if somebody tries to come back later and say, oh, well, you didn't give me this, you didn't give me that, you have a document to turn to that says this is what we agreed upon. Separation agreements do have to be done before you're divorced. It's kind of hard for a court to say that you have the consideration, which is generally you guys divorcing, if you're already divorced. So it's something we generally try to do prior to the divorce being filed. So that way there's no issues of whether or not it was filed timely.
Gotcha. So tell me also, I guess, if, for instance, I'm presented with the separation agreement, right? Is that something that I have to do?
You don't have to sign it. Separation agreements are all based on both parties voluntarily consenting to the terms of the agreement. So if you're worried about signing it, get an attorney to review it. Don't sign a separation agreement that you're not okay with just because you feel like you have to. You don't have to put your John Hancock on that if you're not in agreement with it. And I would suggest you not, especially if you don't understand the terms.
So I have the right to go talk to my lawyer about it if I want.
Definitely. Okay. Nobody can have a separation agreement done without your consent, and it can't be finalized without your consent. And in fact, in order for a separation agreement to be valid in North Carolina, both parties' signatures have to be notarized. So you have to go in front of a notary and say that you are agreeing to these terms and that this is your signature. So if you're not willing to do that or you're iffy about anything, have an attorney review it for you before you sign.
Perfect. I have heard, and I've just kind of had people call in and talk about just kind of a waiver and kind of how that works in doing a separation agreement. Tell me about that. Okay,
so separation agreements have waivers in a few places. The main one that everybody focuses on is the waiver for alimony or post-separation support. Both parties can say that they are now and forever always waiving any claim that they may have to alimony and post-separation support in consideration essentially for all the other terms that they may have agreed to. So that's one big waiver. The other big waiver is equitable distribution. Equitable distribution is how the court splits up everything you own during the marriage and any property you had, things like that. And so when you do a separation agreement, you're essentially saying this is how we would want ED to be done, and we're waiving the claim for anybody to go file. So based on those two things alone, somebody can't go file for alimony if they have a separation agreement. And if they try to do that to you, you just literally plead this separation agreement exists and it said, she said, or she waived the right to it. But one big waiver that comes up that most people aren't really considering and has started to come up a bit more frequently is retirement accounts. Okay. Spouses generally have a right to the retirement accounts as long as you were paying into it during the marriage. So in a separation agreement, there's often language that says I waive right to my retirement account or my interest in the other party's retirement accounts. And that's something not everybody considers, but it is something that is done in a separation agreement. And that way your retirement is protected.
Gotcha. So what are your main takeaways as far as separation agreements, and what would you tell potential clients as far as kind of the big bullet points?
I would tell them first and foremost, it's more than likely a cheaper way of separating everything you've owned during the marriage, especially if you know the other party is willing to negotiate with you. It saves you some court costs and some attorney costs. I would have an attorney draft it. I know there are a couple sites out there that allow parties to draft it on their own, but even if you do that, still have an attorney review it, because there's specific statutes you have to mention in order for it to be a valid agreement. And not every website mentions those statutes in the right way or at all. But the big takeaways are, if somebody's willing to negotiate with you, negotiate it. Go ahead and get everything in a separation agreement, and it saves you time and money on the back end for the divorce. And then if for some reason somebody doesn't follow through, you still have a claim to enforce it.
Perfect. Well, we thank you for joining us. If you are in need of a separation agreement, please give us a call. McCullers, Whitaker & Hamer, your law firm for life, 919-772-7000.